Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Hope everybody's well and doing okay. Had a kind of a quiet day, and which was very good. Went and had tea with a friend, and picked up my laundry, and that's all I did. And had a very nice long nap, and it was good. Felt good. Um, yeah. What I thought about talking about today, and I'm not sure exactly even why it came into my mind, but I wanted to talk a little bit about what kind of treatment I've had through all these years of heart failure. Um, as I said, I was diagnosed officially in 2012, and I know for myself, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I had quite a lot of symptoms starting around 2010 that just kept getting worse and worse until 2012 when I was finally, first of all, I was finally believed, not even believed. I finally, in August of 2012, I think I mentioned this before, I had an episode of VTAC again. And the problem with that episode of VTAC was I had my defibrillator since 2007, but I was still working when this happened in 2012. And it was in August, kind of like now, a little bit later in August. But I was watching television, and I had, gone through my day. I'd worked and went to the gym and did the whole 9 yards of a regular day back then. And I remember it being pretty warm out, not excessively, but a warm summer day, evening by this time. And I had eaten some popcorn. And this was like a Wednesday or Thursday night, and I had to go to work the next day, so I was cleaning up the pot that I used to make the popcorn. And I was at the sink, and I just remember this very intense feeling of just momentarily feeling like I was going to pass out, which is pretty much how the other episodes happened as well. And I took a minute before I realized what was going on. And so what I did was I sat down on my sofa, and I just tried to relax, hoping it would stop, first of all, on its own. That didn't happen. So I'm like, okay, I know this is VTAC without a question in my mind. I know what it feels like. And I'm waiting for the defibrillator to go off. Meanwhile, I'm getting really short of breath. I'm starting to sweat. And I keep thinking, come on already. I sat down again, and I just kind of sat there just waiting for it to happen, the shock. And it didn't. It didn't. It was, I just didn't kind of even know what to do. So finally I realized this isn't working. I don't know why, but it's not going to go off. So I called 911. By this time I'm dripping in sweat and, thinking, this is it. This could be it. And then the ambulance came, and I had to literally go to my front window. I lived on the third floor, and I had to throw keys out down to the paramedic because my landlord at that time refused to wanted people to have to go downstairs to open the door for their visitors. And I told her that before this happened that this made me very nervous because what if I can't get down there? So she didn't care. So anyway, I had to go throw my keys out the window to the paramedics, and then they came up. It was a very narrow stairway. And, you know, I had to open it. I left the door open for them and then sat down again. By this time, I'm just really short of breath, and I'm thinking, we got to get this moving. Come on, let's go. So they came in, and I told them exactly what was going on, or what I thought was going on, what I was certain was going on. And I said, it's just not going off for whatever reason, and I need to go to the hospital. So they asked me if I could walk down 3 flights of stairs, and I said, I felt bad for them because it was very narrow. I said, I can't. I can't do it. I'm sorry, I can't. And they were nice. They were like, okay, and they got the bed, you know, the folding bed up, and they brought it up, and then they did it, you know, how they kind of do it in that seated position, and they carried me down the steps. I hadn't really thought about this or said it out loud in a really long time since pretty much it happened. Oof. It was scary. It was really, really scary. They got me in the ambulance, and then they had to put some IVs in, put an IV in, and then, you know, off we went in the streets of Center City, Philadelphia, which all the streets that we were on, all the streets are all one-way, one-lane streets. So if there's traffic, and this was about 9:30 at night, somewhere around there, 9:30 maybe by this time. So we're going, I think they gave me something through the line that really just, well, they would have either given me lidocaine or adenosine or something like that. And it just, I've had it before, and it's just an awful feeling. And I'm laying there, and it took them a little bit time to get the IV in too. Anyway, so, and they were so nice, they really were. And we're on our way, and I asked them to go to University of Pennsylvania Hospital because that's where all my doctors were. That's where they all knew me and my situation with my, you know, heart from birth and surgeries I've had and so on and so forth. So I said, please take me there. There were closer hospitals, but I really said, I really need to go there. Unfortunately, they did. But as we're driving, like we're stopping, they didn't put the sirens on. I remember that very clearly. And I said, why aren't the sirens on? At one point I said, because we were going really slow, why aren't the sirens on? And they said, well, believe it or not, when we put the sirens on, people, they get worse. They actually just get in the way more. They go slower, or they get panicky and they feel like they can't get out of the way. And I'm like, so we're driving along, and I said, you need to put the sirens on. I remember feeling like I'm gonna go. I'm on my way out here. And that's how I really felt. And I heard the paramedic goes, put the lights and sirens on. We need to get moving here. And so that actually did help. So we go all the way to West Philadelphia, sirens going. We get to the hospital, they bring me in, and they were faster than anything. I couldn't believe how fast. They got me in and in a bed, and within minutes, they were all around me, the doctors and nurses, getting me prepped to shock me. And, I told them quickly what my history, and, of course, they had records there. And then I remember them giving me fentanyl and something else, to get me out for a little bit. Maybe it was no, I think it was fentanyl and something else. And out I went, and they shocked me. And I woke up not very long afterwards. And I was like, now I'm kind of spacey, and I was out of VTAC. And the relief I felt was astonishing. So, and I remember my brother and sister-in-law coming down. By this time, it's probably 11:30 or midnight. And they came down to see how I was doing and so on. And they were going to admit me, which of course they were going to admit me. But I was in the ER for hours, just waiting and waiting. And when this has happened to me in the past, I have just very much just felt like nervous that it was going to happen again. And so I was scared. I was really scared. And confused as to why it didn't work. What happened? So they interrogated it, my device, which they can read. They can download information from it to a computer and see what happened. So I don't remember if they told me that night or the next day or exactly. It was kind of a blur, as you can imagine. And so the next day or that night, they told me that what happened, these devices, they had parameters that they set. So I know that mine was set to start paying attention at 180 beats per minute, which my heart never gets that fast. So I don't know what. I know the first time I had VTAC, my heart rate was around 190 to somewhere between there and 200, up and down a little bit. So it was, I've heard people going faster, but 180. So they set it at 180 that the device would go, oh, something's going on. Let's pay attention here. And then they had it set at 188 to shock me. Well, first what happens was the device paces your heart even faster, and sometimes that will break the cycle. So it's supposed to do that like 3 times. Well, mine didn't even do that, and then shock you. So mine didn't do any of that. So apparently what happened was that my heart rate with this episode of VTAC never went above 170, 172. So with that being the case, the device was just not even paying attention to it, because maybe I was running a marathon, or you know what I mean? It's like some people's heart rates when they exercise heavily get that high. Mine does not, partly because of my heart issues, history. Anyway, so the next day, they had to reprogram it. And I think they reprogrammed it to where it would pay attention at 160. And then if it didn't go away on its own in a bit of time, then it would pace me, start at 164. It would start the pacing thing. And if that didn't work, over 164, it would shock me. So that's what they set it at. And I was in the hospital, just kind of waiting to see the uh, physiologist, electrophysiologist, Dr. Cooper, who I really liked. And another doctor came to see me, the congenital heart doctor, not mine, but another one. And he said, you were in AFib. And I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry. That was a whole other thing. Never mind that. So the next day saw the Dr. Cooper, and he discussed it, and they reset the thing, and I was allowed to go home. So that was in end of August. I was a mess after that, a mess. I couldn't go to work. I was off work for a month because when I get these episodes, and I was in VTAC for 3 or 4 hours by the time it actually got to the hospital and shocked, and my body was like devastated, and so yeah. Anyway, so then I remember asking my congenital heart doctor if I could just have my disability extended another month. This was by September, and she said, no, I can't do that because this isn't happening because of your heart. You're not feeling bad like you're feeling because of your heart. That's what she said to me. I was utterly speechless. I said, well, if it's not my heart, what is it? Well, it could be this, your lungs. It could be the skull. It was crazy. I was like in the twilight zone. So I went to see a pulmonologist. I went to see a spine specialist and all this stuff. And they said, you're not, and by this time I'm gaining weight and I'm short of breath normally when I wouldn't be doing, and I'm like, I had to go back to work because she would not say I could be on disability. I just wanted some more time to get myself back into condition. So finally, I went to these other doctors, and they all said, your lungs are not causing your symptoms. Your scoliosis is not causing your symptoms. Who else had I been to? I can't remember, but so I said these things to her, and she said, well, Mr. Downey, I don't know what to tell you. The only thing I could offer you is we do a cardiac catheterization, and we'll see what that shows. I'm like, you think that's a good idea? So I was like, yes, let's do it. So we did. Went in for it, and the doctor who was doing the procedure, during the procedure, said to me, you know that your pressures are high, and you know that this, and you know that that. And I'm looking at him like, what are you talking about? I have been told all along by the cardiologist that my heart was normal. And he said, okay, well, I'll let your doctor talk to you about what we're finding. So I'm like, what is going on? So I get into recovery, and I'm laying there because I had, the catheter through the groin, so I had to lay there for some, 8 hours, something like that. And while I'm waiting, I get a phone call from my pharmacy. Do you want to come and pick up your Lasix, or should we bring it or deliver it to your house? I said, what are you talking about? I don't have a prescription for Lasix. Well, your doctor called it in. I'm like, I really couldn't comprehend what was going on. So I went online on it was Walgreens, and looked up prescriptions, my prescriptions, and there was a prescription put in that day for Lasix by the cardiologist, who told me my heart was normal. So they hadn't come to see me yet, even in the recovery, to explain to me what's going on. And so I actually got home and she finally called me. Now this is late in the afternoon. My brother and sister-in-law took me home and we picked up the Lasix. I didn't take it because I didn't know why I even got it. So she calls me and she says, "Oh, Mr. Downey, I'm so sorry, but I just didn't know. You just didn't present like I thought you should have presented." I'm like, "What?" She said, "The pressures in your heart were high." And she still didn't say heart failure, but they were high, and we wanted to put you on this diuretic to get some of the fluid off. Oh, well, besides, I got to tell you this. She told me beforehand, while I was still waiting, trying to find out what was wrong before the catheterization. She told me all this weight in my stomach was, "Mr. Downey, it's just fat. Your diet and you're not doing very much." And I'm like, I talked about this in another video. Anyway, I don't want to go into that again. So anyway, I was put on Lasix. And then I wasn't doing anything. Very small dose they put me on. Then I went back to visit them in person, and she just said, you just didn't look like you were having this problem because it just didn't seem like it to me. I'm still like, okay. And then, so I wasn't feeling any better. Wasn't, the gut was still there. So then they put me on amlodipine, which is to lower your blood pressure. So I was on that and the Lasix, still nothing. So she raised the Lasix to, I forget what it was, like doubled what it was. And I went home one day after work, still working, and I took it and laid down, and in, I think, 3 or 4 hours, I lost 9 pounds. 9 pounds of fluid in one day. Maybe 7, because by the end of the weekend, this was a Friday night, I had lost a total of 9 pounds. That first night it was like 7, and I cannot even begin to tell you the relief I felt in my abdomen. My abdomen visibly went down. My belt size, my waist size, and my pants changed in a weekend. I know I get a little excited about this just because it was such I'm going to say it, clusterfuck. And it was a horrible experience, that whole thing. And I eventually left her as my doctor because I was afraid I was going to die. And I went to a doctor, actually where I worked, which was at a different hospital. Somebody told me about this doctor who was a heart failure specialist. And I went to him just as a second opinion. So he looked at all my stuff, my records. I brought them to him, gave him the story, this and that. And by the way, the other doctor still didn't call it heart failure. She called it congestion. And I'm like, it's heart, I'm a nurse. I know what it is. Well, we don't like to use heart failure because that upsets people. And I'm like, this upsets me. You're ringing around the rosy and I don't know what you're doing. I'm a nurse. Tell me the freaking truth. So he looks at my records, listens to my story, and he goes, well, of course you're in heart failure. Of course you're in heart failure. So by this time it's January, by the way. It's early January, and I'm still working. And I could hardly work at all. I couldn't get up in the morning. I was dead tired. I had to leave early. My boss, thank goodness, really worked with me because I was coming in late and I had to leave early because I couldn't do more. So finally, and then I called my pulmonologist who I was seeing back then. He was great. And I said to him finally, could you sign me off on disability? I can't do this. And he said, absolutely, absolutely, because the cardiologist wouldn't. So he finally did, and I was able to go out on disability. That would have been January of 2013. I was still in heart failure and getting worse. And it was awful. And I thought, I'm going to die. So then the other heart failure doctor specialist, I worked with him for months to try this and try that and get sorted out on medications. And now I've gone 25 minutes. So I can't talk about the medications I've been on tonight, because I'll do that next video, all the medications I'm on, because just that was a heck of a story. But at least he was working with me and trying it. And you know, I believe he saved my life at that time, because I just was getting worse and worse and worse. So if I had stuck with that other doctor, I am absolutely certain I wouldn't be here now. And that was, 11 years ago, almost 12 years ago. So I'm lucky to be here. And the last 12 years that I've been through have been hard, but I wouldn't have had them had I not left that doctor and gone to somebody who took what was going on with me seriously. So that's when my treatment for heart failure really started. And tomorrow, or my next video, I will go through what that was like, because it was intense. It was really intense. So I'll go through that tomorrow. So for other people who maybe are in heart failure, and have had trouble with your doctors not even believing you, not literally not even believing you, but you're telling them. And it's a horrible experience. I'm sure by this point in time, a lot of us have had it, gone through that experience, sorry. Getting short of breath. So I'm gonna end this video and I'll come back tomorrow. I always say, if I'm still alive, and talk about that. This has been a long trip to where I'm at right now, a really long, well, a 70-year journey, but this intense journey has been for the last 12 years, to the point where I'm now on my way out. So, but I want this to be out there, and I want it to potentially help somebody else, and to not feel alone and not feel like you're not the only one going through this stuff. And also knowing that you don't have to put up with doctors who don't believe you. You don't have to do that. You can get second, third opinions. Don't hesitate. Never hesitate. Because I did. I didn't want to hurt their feelings. I didn't want to rock the boat. But if I hadn't, I wouldn't be here. And I know that. So there you go. I'll talk to you more tomorrow. I appreciate your listening. I know I'm sorry for this was a really long video. I apologize for it, but yeah, it's what happened. So have a good evening, and I wish that you have peace and joy, some happiness, and yeah, good night. I appreciate it. I really do.